All right, welcome to Project Dark Corona podcast.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Yes. So this is going to be a great night. This is going to be the first night that we get to go live from the new website. Remember, projectdarkcorona.org, everybody. And go into the Area 51 chat room and come join us. We are still simulcasting from Podbean and from Spreaker. And so, you know, if you're on there, hey, welcome to. We love all of you. And but you know what? Come out to the new website, projectdarkcorona.org. Check us out. Make a membership. It's free. Doesn't cost a dang thing, right? Right, Jason?
Oh yeah, it's free.
Right, it's free. Right. Free's good. Free's good. I like free. Free's a good price.
For all you Spreakers, well, whoever's on our website, we had a little technical difficulty there at first.
Yep.
Didn't catch the whole song, but now we're here.
Hey, we're live. So,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say we got I was going to tell them who we had with us.
Yes.
What the show was about anyway.
Yeah, what the show? We won't go through the bio yet.
We're going to have Doug Waller. He's going to be talking to us about Bigfoot sightings.
Oh yeah, I love talking Bigfoot. That's why we're going to the Bigfoot conference this year. So we got us a table and everything, right, Jason?
Oh yeah,
right, Lee. We got a table.
Yep,
we're gonna be there, big and proud.
Yeah, July 24th, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, the Bigfoot conference.
That's right. It's the third annual Bigfoot conference in Gatlinburg. It's gonna be awesome. Also, remember to go to our go ahead and go to our Facebook page, Everything Paranormal Bigfoot, UFOs, Aliens, and Ghosts. Go ahead and check us out on Twitter at Project Dark Coro. That is CORO. Isn't that bird? And again, come to the website. That's projectdarkcorona.org. It's all brand new and revamped. We've been working hard on it all week, and I think everybody will enjoy. There's something for everybody, and if not, hey, just leave us a comment. If there's something that's missing, leave us a comment. We'll try to add it. It's what we do.
Yeah, and we want to welcome everybody that's in the chat room on Area 51 chat.
Yes, thank you for showing up. Lee, who's all coming up here pretty soon?
Well, that's what I was going to talk about. If you go to the website, projectdarkcorona.org, you can go into the events calendar, and you can check and see who all is coming up. I got bios on them and everything. It shows if they've got a YouTube channel. I've got a short YouTube video up there of them. If they sell books, I got links to where you can go buy their books. If they got a Twitter feed, you can see their live Twitter feed and everything. And we got JB Coates talking paranormal that'll be coming up next week with us. And she's one of our friends down there at Old South Vicksburg Hospital. And she's also an author and got 3 books. And she's excited to be on with us. And then the week after that, we're going to be talking with Lyle Blackburn, and he's going to tell us about all kinds of different legendary cryptids. Of course, he'll talk about Bigfoot with us a little bit too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
a little bit of legend of Boggy Creek, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. And another thing I'd like to ask everyone to do is go to projectdarkcorona.org, and at the top of the page, go over to the little picture of paranormality. It's for the top 25. Go there and vote for us. Last month, Project Dark Corona was number 9. And so go in there and put Project Dark Corona as the show, hosted by David Reagan and Jason Scott. And you can vote for us every single day. Yes. We'd appreciate it.
Three. Well, each time you vote, it's 3 votes. So you get 3 votes.
I'm sort of too honest. I just vote for us once.
Oh, I do it 3 times.
I do it 3 times on 3 different phones, 3 different email accounts.
Wow. Maybe
we'll
make first,
Yeah, that's how you do it, right? That's how you win. Hey, you know what time it is, right?
What time is it?
What time is it? Oh, no.
We got some weird news coming up with David.
Thank you, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
So, tonight I am talking about a distant star that drowns its partner in gas. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Necklace Nebula. Now, if you're in our Area 51 chat room, I just threw the link up. Click on it. It comes up right there in front of you. It doesn't take you to another page. Let's see. Yes, Sherry, the player should be at the top of the chat.
Hit refresh.
Hit refresh. Type that in there. So if you hit that little, web address there, it'll show you kind of what the nebula looks like. Once you get done, you can just click off to one of the sides and it goes away. So we're going to talk about the Necklace Nebula. So the Necklace Nebula, man, what happened to my voice today? Necklace Nebula. Whatever. And I picked this, everybody. Yep. So the larger star swallowed up its smaller companion over 10,000 years ago, said NASA. So two stars that were bound together in orbital matrimony are slowly ripping each other apart. And like many relationship squabbles, this stellar spat ends with jewelry. Woo! So meet the Necklace Nebula, known as PNG054.203.4.
Okay, that's an awesome name.
That's
I like
awesome,
the
right?
Necklace Nebula.
Right.
That sounds
It seems a lot nicer, right?
Yeah.
So this planetary nebula is located about 15,000 light years from Earth, inside the Sagitta constellation in the northern sky. To telescopes, the NASA Hubble and Nebula looks like an emerald oval. That would be pretty, huh? Well, everybody's kind of looking at it there. So it is ringed with sparkling clusters of jewel-like gas. A pair of binary stars forms a bright neck at the center. That speck looks like a single star, but it is no bachelor. About 10,000 years ago, the star grew so large that its outermost layer of gas actually swallowed up a smaller companion star. That smaller star is still orbiting inside the larger planet's gaseous sheath, known as a common envelope. What do you think about that, everybody?
Yeah.
Pretty cool, right?
Learning new words.
And I'm saying them properly, I think. So,
as far as everybody knows, right?
Yeah, hey, we wing it here. We wing it.
You're doing good. You're doing good. I just had to
That's
give
okay.
you a bad time.
I love it. Someone's got to give me a bad time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's get this started.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Let's do it.
We got Mr. Doug Waller. He's
Yes.
a Bigfoot investigator and author, and he has been fascinated with the legend of Bigfoot for over 30 years. In 2006, he began seriously researching sightings of Bigfoot in his home state of Ohio, with particular interest in the southeastern part of Ohio where he lives. Due to his intense interest in the subject, he began meeting many eyewitnesses. And in 2008, he founded his Bigfoot group, the Southeastern Ohio Society for Bigfoot Investigation.
Or SOSPI.
Oh, yeah. So the main focus of his group is to provide a safe venue for Bigfoot eyewitnesses to come together to share their encounters and experiences without the fear of ridicule. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's bring on Doug.
Hey, Doug, how you doing?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Oh, it's always an excellent night when we get to do this. When we have
Well, I'm glad.
great guys like you on.
Well, thank you. Anxious to get to some Bigfoot stories and see what we can come up with.
Man, I tell you, this subject right here, I don't know, but Jason and I really get into some Bigfoot. We do. So Doug, what got you into Bigfooting? Did you have your own sighting or someone close to you or something like that?
No, not exactly. I was always interested in it. And in the early 1990s, I was hired by the Guernsey County Library in Cambridge, Ohio, and found out that, we had all these books on the shelves, and I always did like to read. I've always been a nonfiction reader. That interested me more than the novels and the fiction section. And when I discovered the Bigfoot books that we had, I checked them all out and read them and, was hungry for more, and soon learned that I could go through the interlibrary loan system and contact other libraries and have books that they had on the subject that we didn't. I could have those books sent to me. So I had books coming and going all the time. I was reading 2 and 3 of them, every week. I just couldn't get enough quick enough. And there was a coworker of mine that was also interested in this. And, I would share stories out of books. And if I got a really, really super interesting, good book, I'd say, before we send this back to the library that sent it, you ought to really read this because this is a good one. Well, then there was a couple in town, married couple that we knew that had a sighting at Salt Fork. And we got a hold of them and asked them if they would meet us out at the park and show us where their sighting took place. So they did. And, the bug just sunk its teeth in deeper into me. I was just hooked on it. So every weekend, practically, my coworker and I were out in the woods, either in Guernsey County around Salt Fork, or sometimes we'd go to Coshocton County, which is just west of there, north and west a little bit, because it had a rich history of sightings in that county too. And we started our group, as you said, in 2008. And after talking to enough witnesses and, investigating their sightings and encounters, I wrote my first book, Standing in the Shadows. And I started getting invitations to speak at conferences and libraries. And before long, I had enough information from witnesses to write book number 2, Hidden Encounters. That led to Screams in the Night, book number 3, Bigfoot Reports, book number 5. Last year I came out, book number 4. Last year, book number 5, Silent Forest, came out. I kind of got slowed down a great deal due to COVID because, just about everything was canceled last year, all the library talks. And we did actually get to do one real early in the year. I think it was January or February. And we got to do the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. But they, you had to wear a mask, and they had each speaker talk in a morning session and an afternoon session. So there weren't as many people in the banquet room to listen. But, what happened was I didn't get near as many stories last year because of the COVID restrictions, because I didn't meet people and talk to them. I got a few stories here and there, but nothing like I had been getting every year. So what that means is my 6th book, which is unnamed at this time, I'm not sure when that will be out, whether that'll take another year or 2 years or what. I need stories, and they don't have to be new stories. I treasure these stories, especially the old ones. I've got some that even predate the Patterson-Gimlin film. And, if I can get these stories and write them down and preserve them, then they're safe. I hate to hear about somebody that had an encounter and he wouldn't talk about it, and they'll die and take the story to the grave with them, and nobody ever gets to hear what happened.
Yeah.
And they don't have to provide their name. If they want to remain anonymous, that's perfectly understandable.
So
some people do.
So do you take stories from just the southeastern part of Ohio or the state of Ohio or anywhere?
No, I've had stories from all over the place. Probably 20 or 25 different states, from Canada. I've got one from, I forget which book it was, but there's one from South America.
Hmm.
And, you know, I met these people. The South American story was a fellow who, I can't remember which conference I ran into him at, but he was, you know, he was looking at my books, and I think he bought a book, and he said he'd had a sighting, but it was actually in Brazil when he was in the military. And, you know, I get a tingle up my spine when somebody comes up and they say, "Oh, I looked at your book and there's a story in there from a little town that I grew up in, and I used to hear screams in the night, or I used to smell this sulfur smell." And nobody would believe me when I said, maybe it's Bigfoot. And then I read in one of your books where somebody in that town had a sighting. So I'm not crazy. You know, somebody else saw this thing too.
Right.
Yeah. 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 I just wanted to let you know that Singing Timberwolf in the chat room says, hello, how are you doing? And,
doing fine, Phil.
And
he knows that name.
And
he knows it.
We have another one right here. Kathy says that she has all your books. She says hello. So
well, I'm glad you tuned in tonight, Kathy, and hope you enjoyed the books. And like I said, I'm not sure when the next one will be out. It just depends on how long it takes me to get enough material. But I'm slowly working on it.
Well, you know, hopefully tonight, and then people who's listened to the show will, if you want to, you know, we'll do it at the beginning of the show, and we'll do it again at the end of the show too. Go ahead and give out where people can get a hold of you. I mean, I know we've got it on, you know, if they go into our events page, even on our Facebook page or our events page that's on our website, they could get all that information. But if you want to go ahead and give that out here too.
Yeah, they can reach me on Facebook, Doug Waller, or they can go through our SOSP page, Southeastern Ohio Society for Bigfoot Investigations. Or if they want to email me, it's dwaller465@gmail.com. And, you know, I'd be glad to listen to people. What I typically do, if I don't like to take an interview at a convention or at a library or something when there's other people around, because it's too confusing and, you know, I don't get enough information. But what I'll do is either sit down with the person, you know, in person somewhere and put a little recorder down and take notes, or I'll talk to them on the phone and do the same thing. Sometimes it'll take a second meeting or a second phone call to get more details. And a lot of these, as I said, a lot of these incidents where they take place, I'll find back in one of my previous books, there was something else occurred in that same area. And, you know, that's really interesting. It kind of adds credence to their story when there's already been one report. And quite often the reports I get are from people who never reported it at all. You know, I've got some of them that possibly are on the BFRO database, but most of mine come into me or our group and they've not been reported before. You know, we do these library talks, and oftentimes there'll be somebody hanging around when it's over, and they never raised their hand and asked a question. They just sat and listened. And then when we're, you know, tearing down the displays and getting ready to go home, they might come up and kind of hem-haul around. And I'm thinking, well, maybe they want to buy a book, or they want to, you know, talk to me. And they'll come up and make sure no one's listening, and they'll say, I saw one of those things and nobody believed me. That's the kind of person I'm looking for because I want to get the story. And, it's a huge weight off their chest when they finally tell somebody and they don't get laughed at, because sometimes even family members will laugh at a witness. Friends will call somebody a liar right to their face. And, it's really a traumatic experience for most people when they have a sighting of one of these creatures.
Yeah, I mean, it's real nice that you did start Sosby, because that way everybody could actually come to a place and be comfortable to tell their stories. And like you said, they won't be ridiculed and everything. Right.
And a lot of these eyewitnesses have bonded with one another and became good friends. And, they'll sit and talk with each other and discuss, well, what did you think when you saw it? I thought I was crazy, but it wasn't, because, when it walked away, there was its footprints in the ground still there, And like I said, some of these people have become very good friends with one another because of this.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, I've been interested in the topic for a long time, and as a truck driver, I get to drive across this awesome nation of ours, and from sea to shining sea, we do all the lower 48, and then we also do Canada, and every once in a while we go to Alaska. And a couple of years ago, I have it somewhere on my phone exactly, but a couple of years ago, I had what I thought was a sighting, and it was in Washington State on I-90.
I think it was last summer sometime.
Yeah, so it was. I think it was, and so I was driving on I-90, and there's big parts of it where it's just. I do the nighttime driving. My wife does daytime driving. We team drive. So I'm driving. It's probably almost 11 o'clock at night. I'm the only truck on the road. I mean, it's literally almost desolate. And I see it's just slightly foggy. It's not, so dense that you can't see but 5 foot in front of you, but it's foggy enough to where your headlights stop, 20 foot or 30 foot in front of you. And I see coming out of the center, in between the two interstates, coming across the interstate in front of me, just at light range, just this massive bipedal. It was bipedal for sure. And it was massive. I would say that if I was able to pull up next to it, it would be able to. I could roll down my window and talk to him. He'd be able to look at me eye to eye and talk to him.
Why didn't you do that?
Right, because he literally, and this is a 2-lane interstate. He took 3 steps and went from ditch to ditch.
Yeah, so he went across the road that you were at, across the median, across the next road.
Yes. And he went 3 steps from the median to median in front of me and up an embankment. And it was before I could reach him. And he was quite fast for how big it was. And I was like, I know it's not a human. Just for the size, and plus I was out in the middle of nowhere. Who's going to be out there running across the street?
But now in the future, you got that dash cam, right?
I have a dash cam now.
Yeah,
I do. We actually installed the dash cam now because of this stuff. So, but yeah, and it wasn't that I never didn't think that they were possible, because I've always believed that the evidence outweighs the skeptics, as far as I'm concerned, on Bigfoot. Oh,
I've taken, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 reports from truck drivers that had sightings. Yeah. And matter of fact, I just got one this spring or late winter. I think the guy saw it toward the end of January on Interstate 77, actually right over there real close to where the Salt Fork Dam is. And his sighting was, it was like 2:30 a.m. or 3:30 a.m. And it did just what you said, cross the road in front of him. And he was, I think he said, pouring a cup of coffee. And he had something on his truck that would, if it saw something out in front that it thought the truck was going to collide with, it automatically hit the brakes.
Yeah.
And it did that. And he looked up and saw this thing crossing the highway. And actually, he said, believe it or not, that wasn't the first time that had happened. He had another sighting down in the Lufkin, Texas region one night about midnight. One started to go across, and he locked the brakes up and slid. And he said he came within inches of hitting it. As a matter of fact, one of the mirrors just cleared its head when he came to a stop. And then it went out around and continued on across, or turned and went back the other way.
Yeah, and that mirror is at least 7.5 feet in the air.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, that one that I saw, he was taller than that. It was taller than that. I don't know if it was a he or she, but it was taller than that because, like I said, you know, it towered above the hood of my truck. And I know from the looks of it, he would have been sitting, if I would have been able to pull up next to him and talk to him, he'd look me eye to eye. And so, I mean, he was every bit of
And he would have said, David,
8 foot tall.
slow down.
He'd been like, you almost hit me. But no, it was, you know, it was something. I never thought, you know, that I would ever have anything like that happen to me, but you know, I guess that's when things happen to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's like over at Salt Fork. You know, I live really close to the park, and my research partner that I worked with, I'm retired from the library now. She and I would go over there and drive up and down those roads and get out and walk. And, you know, we had found broken, twisted trees, and we've found tracks. We smelled something one time in another county. It smelled like rotten eggs. And then we came back 30 minutes later, that same area, and that smell was gone. We've heard vocalizations, but we've never actually seen one. But we've spent, you know, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours out there and have yet to see one. And then you'll read where, you know, this truck driver comes through from, you know, he's from 2 or 3 states away, and he just comes through first time he's been in that area and he sees one. Or somebody goes up to the park to, you know, go to the lodge to eat their dinner, and they have a sighting of one running across the road down below the golf course. So, you know, it's luck has a lot to do with it, you know, just being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how those road sightings happen is it's an accident on their part and everything that they actually are there when you're coming through. Maybe a miscalculation, I guess would be the better word, of saying on their part that they miscalculated that someone would be there when they weren't. We're going to take a quick break. We've got a couple questions in the chat room.
I've got a couple questions.
And so we've got a few questions. So when we come back,
having you on here.
Yes, this is awesome, and we love talking about this subject. So, but when we come back from our break, we'll throw these questions out to you, and so we'll be right back. We're talking to Doug Waller, and we're talking about Bigfoot. And remember, we are simulcasting live on Spreaker and on Podbean. And if everybody would go to Project Dark Corona and go into our Area 51 chat room. You know, you could actually see everything that we're talking about and chat with us live. Remember, everything Paranormal, Bigfoot, Aliens, and Ghosts is our Facebook page. And we'll be back right after these messages.
You're listening to Project Corona.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Sieber from East Tennessee Bigfoot.org. You're listening to David and Jason at Project Dark Corona Radio.
Thanks for listening to Project Dark Corona. You can find us on Facebook at Project Dark Corona Podcast. All of our shows are posted in the events section. You can also find us on Twitter at Project Dark Coro. We have a webpage at projectdarkcorona.org. You can sign up and become a member. You can post blogs and listen to past shows. So remember and listen to Project Dark Corona Podcast.
Welcome and thanks for listening to Project Dark Corona on Podbean. If you like our show and would like to support it, you can by becoming a patron. Just click on the box that says Become a Patron and sign up. We have different options that you can choose from to support us. Some of the perks becoming a patron include bonus content, free gifts, and the feeling of being part of the show. So thanks, and continue listening to Project Dark Corona.
Hey, this is Jeff Reagan with the band Catalyst. You're listening to Project Dark Corona with David Reagan and Jason Scott.
All right. All right. Welcome back to Project Dark Corona.
Welcome. We're talking to Doug Waller.
That was a nice break, wasn't
It
it?
was. And remember that what you're listening to right there is Mississippi Bones. And they allow us to use their music. Go check them out. And the name of that song is called Sasquatch Paparazzi. That's a pretty good song.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to bring Doug back on. How you doing, Doug?
Still here, hanging in here.
Still kicking.
So we got a few questions. Jason was going to take the first one, I think.
Oh, yeah. Sherry in the chat room, she was wondering about, has anybody ever had like an aggressive encounter?
That's been reported to me, you mean?
Yes, that you've reported on or investigated.
A lot of people misconstrue like a bluff charge or, an intimidation tactic as something aggressive. I'm certainly sure it's frightening to them, but,
Right.
The people that I've heard of that were chased made it. I sincerely believe when a Bigfoot takes off after a person and the person makes it to the car or makes it to the house without getting caught and killed, it's because Bigfoot allowed him to. He chose to let him go, but he still instilled fear in the person, like, well, that'll teach you, don't come up in my woods anymore because I'm the ruler.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. I think, if they wanted to get you and kill you, I don't think they'd have any problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
But some people, believe that the scream or the rock or the, bluff charge or shaking the tree is an aggressive trait when I think it's just an intimidation tactic.
So like
Not to
warn
say
you.
not to say that they would never be aggressive, because I think they could be. I've read reports of people that have habituation things going on their property, and they say, oh, we all sit around the campfire and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. The forest people won't, the forest people are your friends and they won't hurt you. Well, maybe the ones on your property do get along, but you haven't run into one that's got an abscessed tooth, or he just got his butt kicked by a bigger one out there, or like I've said before, maybe a female with PMS or something.
Oh goodness! Yeah.
Because I think that they could be capable and able to rip you in half in a second if they choose to. If you got between the mother or the father in that case and the young, look what bears will do.
Yeah.
And, what if you were out hunting and saw one and just decided, you're going to shoot at it with an undersized gun or something, and you wound it and make it mad. But I've had reports of one girl, something ran up from behind her and pushed her down into the mud and then took off, in a blur. And when she got home, she was crying and she told her mother. And at first her mother thought, well, she's just making up a story because she came home so muddy. But on the back of the girl's sweatshirt was a great big, huge, muddy handprint where something had shoved her down. And there was another story where another girl was riding a ATV pulling the little trailer out through the woods, and she was getting sap, out of the maple trees, or hanging the buckets on there for the, to get the sap for the maple syrup. And something come down out of the tree or ran up from behind her. I can't remember which it was right now. And I think it rocked the quad and maybe thumped her on the back and then took off. But there again, if it had really wanted to hurt her, it could have very easily. I think it was just a warning, don't proceed on out through there for whatever reason. Maybe there was a young one out there, or one was getting ready to give birth or something. I don't know. So, it's just on how you interpret it. But, something that big, the first thing that comes to mind if you saw it was, oh my God, I'm dead. This thing's going to rip me in half.
Right.
Well, I had a question. It was one of the cases that I saw you did on Garnet Stevenson in Erie County, New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the fence and everything. Could you tell our listeners about that?
Well, she has horses, and she has a barn, and she has a corral that's got a fence around there that at one time the fence was only like 4 feet high, 3.5, 4 feet high. So she went to the lumber yard and bought some more. I think it was 2x6s, 12-foot long 2x6s. And she added a third rail that put the height of the fence up to around 5 feet. And she secured the 2x6s onto the posts with, I think it was 3.5-inch twist nails that she drove in with a hammer. And apparently there was at least one Bigfoot that had an attitude, and it would come up out of the hollow at night and walk up to the barn. Now she kept her horses in the barn at night, and they were locked in. They couldn't get out, or nothing could get in. However, there were windows along one side of this barn where if something were to look in, if it was tall enough, which we assume this Bigfoot was, it could look in through the windows and see the horses in the stalls. So we think that must have been, what attracted it to the barn at night to come up there and look in the windows. But she had this fence, and she put this top rail on there, and apparently the Bigfoot had been coming up out of the hollow and stepping over the lower height fence. And then when she added that third rail, it wasn't able to step over it. It had to either vault over top of it or go around it or climb over it. And it didn't want to do that, apparently, because it knocked the upper board off, from one post. It was the one nail was still securing the board in there, and the other one had been pulled out of that post, so the end of that board was on the ground at an angle. And she kept thinking, well, maybe I missed that. Maybe the horses did that when they were out in the corral. So she'd pound them back on there, and it kept getting knocked off. And one night she had the window open in the house, and she could hear this sound, which was the actual nail coming out of the post. It wasn't being pounded out. It was being pulled. The board was being actually pulled out, and she could hear this. And that was, those. And she sent me pictures of it. And she said, I finally just left them like that. I got tired of putting them back up again.
Yeah.
But this hollow where she thinks that they would come up from, she said the horses would avoid that hollow. They wouldn't go down in there. And she'd heard noises coming from there. She still has activity on her property. I get messages from her now and then when she finds another footprint or she hears screams or whatever. So, it's an ongoing investigation, so to speak. And there is a fellow Bigfooter that lives up in, I think, around Erie, PA, and he goes over and checks her place out all the time. So, it was very interesting. But apparently this Bigfoot didn't like to go around her fence when he could no longer step over it, so he kept knocking the board off.
Yeah, she was being a nuisance to him, right? He just
yeah,
wanted to
I
get
guess.
on there. Yeah.
I have a couple questions here from the chat room. We have Lori Hines, and she I guess it's more of a statement than a question, but she says that she has heard that the Bigfoot in Alaska, a lot of them are very aggressive.
Yeah.
The hairy man or something they call them up there.
Well, that one little town up there where they had the cannery. Yeah.
Chatham. Okay. Yeah.
Port Chatham. And I looked that up myself years ago, the early days of our SOSP meetings. And I found it listed under a name of Portlock, but they actually had satellite photos of the place, and a lot of the buildings are still standing, but it's deserted. And some of the residents would go up in the mountains to hunt and not come back, and they would find their bodies, in the river where they got washed downstream sometime later on, and a lot of them, their necks would be broken, or they'd find their rifles and the barrels would be bent. And
that might be the problem. Taking a rifle. Yeah.
And well, they'd go up there to hunt deer, right, and they'd run into these things, and the townspeople just had enough, and they deserted. They cleared out. Yeah. And I talked to a guy from Oklahoma, and he said there are some clans in Oklahoma that are very aggressive also. I don't remember which part of the state he was referring to, but and I don't think it was on the same extreme as what it was up in Alaska. I would hope not, but but you could have some bad apples out there.
Yeah,
right.
Well, with Alaska, with them taking a rifle, I mean, Alaska has 98% of the grizzly population, so they're sort of dangerous.
Not only the grizzlies though, but it's
and
also
black bears.
You also have
elk,
the polar bears, and they've been known to actually hunt humans.
Oh, okay.
So they say that even sometimes kids in Alaska will carry guns to their bus stops because of the fact of grizzly or because of the polar bears hunt humans. So I could understand why you would have them. Right. And the story of the cannery and everything, I've watched quite a few shows. The Travel Channel has a few on there, and that's a pretty crazy place up there. I mean, the stories that has come out of that area is I don't know. I think it rivals, anything that's happened down in the lower 48. You got to
be a pretty rugged person to live in Alaska to start with.
You do. I mean, you got to be willing to live rough,
right?
In parts of Alaska for sure.
You can't be a soft person. You definitely got to work.
Now, Singing Timberwolf says that he or I can't say he because I'm not for sure, but they remember what happened to them. That they was in a wildlife area at Salt Fork, and it says that Doug knows the area at the dead end road. He said that he spent the night there. I remember a small rock or something came out of the woods. 5 minutes later, a bigger rock came out of the woods. And they just laid low and didn't get out of their car, and then nothing happened. But they just had a creepy feeling. So I guess that area.
Yeah, I know. That's where he's talking about.
Yeah. He put a picture up in the chat room of the area of the road.
Yeah, that particular area, it is very creepy, and it's about 2 miles off of one old township road to go down to this road, which at one time was an open township road. But when they built the dam, and built Salt Fork State Park, it's common to be out on the lake in out on the water in a boat. and you'll be fishing or riding around, and you'll see, looks like a gravel boat ramp.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was an old township road that came down off the hill and went down into the lake. And if you turn and look, on the other bank, oftentimes you'll see where it came out on the other side. And, a lot of these are starting to grow over to where you can't see them, but some of them are still evidence over there. But this particular one, it's probably 2 miles back down into the woods, and there's absolutely no houses or no lights or nothing down there. It just dead ends, and there's like a little cul-de-sac where you can turn around. And a lot of us would get out, and some people would just sit and listen, and other people would do tree knocks or howls or anything like that. And there's been quite a bit of response from Sasquatches down in that area. Some people get things thrown at them, or they get screamed at or growled at, or they see eye shine. So it's a very popular place.
Yeah, I guess I got another question for you.
Uh-oh.
It was about the woman where she was getting visited and banging on the house and stuff like that, if you remember that story.
It sounds like the story from my first book. I met this couple actually at a Bigfoot meeting that Don Keating had back in the, would have been I started going to his meetings shortly after he started having them back in the early to mid 80s. But I think we actually met these people. It was after 2000. It was right before we started our group. But anyway, they lived out in rural Guernsey County, northwest of Cambridge. And they had Bigfoot on their property, and they'd been coming around for years. And the man had documented all this on a notebook, all the screams and the tracks and the pounding on the house and everything that happened. And he died. And I've actually got pictures in the snow of footprints where it was on the actual day of his funeral, where one of them came to the house almost as if it was paying its respects.
Wow.
And it was while his wife was in town at the funeral, and they had a neighbor stay at the house so nobody would break in, knowing that there was a funeral and nobody would be home. How some people will do things like that. So they had a neighbor stay at the house. And when the lady came back home that evening, right before dark, she saw these big, huge 20-inch long footprints in the snow walking away from the house. And I went out and got pictures of them. But she continued to live there alone after her husband died. And she used to call me all the time. She'd hear screams and she'd smell things. And it was an old 2-story farmhouse. And one night she got a handful of gravel thrown up on the roof right under her window, and, just terrified her. And I said, well, Mary Lou, you told me you've been putting garbage out. You threw garbage over the fence. And she said, well, that was for the raccoons and the possums. Well, Bigfoot will get conditioned to coming around just like a stray dog will, or a possum.
Right. You feed me, I'm going to come.
Yeah. And, if he comes around and there's nothing down there at the fence, and he looks up there at the house and he sees your bedroom light on, he's just telling you, hey, I'm out here. How about giving me something? I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And they used to slap on the house, and, we put trail cameras up, and we thought, oh boy, we're going to get pictures. Well, we didn't get anything, except her on the riding mower and the mailman stopping at the mailbox. And that was about it. But she lived there for a good while alone until she finally developed dementia, and her daughters put her in a home, and the property was sold, and I haven't been back. I don't know whether they're still out there, the creatures. I would assume, as long as nothing has changed where anybody would, shoot at them or try to run them off or anything, they're probably still on the property now and then.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is sort of fascinating, I know, like in your past, you used to be a fisherman and stuff like that, and all those places you would go to, and now it's like you just can't do that type of stuff because you would be preoccupied trying to see if you see a Bigfoot around. Yeah.
Well, it was like me. I used to go ginsenging.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd go miles back into the woods to go ginsenging, and so one day I'll be like, you know what? I'm not going to go ginsenging. I'm going to go dig golden seal, because you could find like huge patches of golden seal. And so I'd go to dig. My focus would be to go dig golden seal. I'd run across the first ginseng patch. Guess what? The rest of the day was spent ginsenging. So I can understand, though. You go into the woods, what are you going to do? You're going to do first thing that comes in mind. Yeah, Bigfoot. Yeah. So it just makes sense to me.
Well, when I was in about the 4th grade, I did my first Bigfoot hunt in the snow in Philadelphia, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't find nothing but cow tracks.
Yeah,
it's pretty flat land out there.
But me and my buddy, we would. His name was Travis. He was my best friend, and we would get the globe in the school and just twist it and then stop it with our finger, and that's where we was going Bigfoot hunting.
Oh goodness!
Yeah, I'm serious. That's what we did. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh man!
So, when you take all these people that tell you what their stories and all these things, what is, as far as one of the best stories that you've got, what is that story? The story that you go to the most when you do your speeches and things like that?
Well, a lot of them are interesting, very interesting, and they're not all scary.
Right.
Some of them are humorous, and other ones, are humbling. But I took one in my last book, the Silent Forest is the title, about a guy that was deer hunting. He had a couple of incidents. He had a first sighting with one of his best friends when they were out driving around scouting for deer, and they saw this thing going across the field, and he didn't see it for very long, but by the color of it, he couldn't identify what it was, and they saw it walk into the trees. So they just sat there and kept watching. And then he saw it again, and it was coming through it at first was seen in an open field, like a pasture field. And then it disappeared into the trees at the edge of the field. And then he saw it coming through the trees where there was openings, and could see that it was coming closer to them. And then they lost sight of it again. And then when it stepped out for the last time, it was really close to the vehicle, and they were able to tell exactly what it was. And it was a Bigfoot, and I can't remember. I think it was kind of reddish orange, the hair. And they were, scared, to say the least. And they had to back the car up because apparently it was on a dead end lane or something. They couldn't proceed the way they were pointed. They had to back the car up about 100 feet to get out of there. And it had such a profound impact on his friend that the friend just quit coming around, quit talking to him on the phone, never associated with him anymore. And he said, I don't know why, other than, we both saw it, but, I didn't say anything bad to him or anything like that. As a matter of fact, we didn't even talk about it. We were probably in shock. But so he lost his good friend when he had that sighting. But the second incident that happened was this involved deer hunting again, and he was with another guy. And I forget what year it happened, but he said he'd already filled his tag, killed a buck, and he had another friend that had never killed a deer, or never killed a buck deer, I think he said. And this fellow says, well, I know where there's some out behind my house where they bed down, where they feed, and I've already filled my tag. So if you want to come over there, I'll take you out there and show you a good place, and maybe you can get one. So they did. The guy was able to shoot an 8-point buck, and they were dragging it back to the guy's house. And they got it to within about a mile of the house, and they stopped. And of course, the deer was gutted out and everything. And they said, okay, now from this point, they can get the man's 4-wheel drive truck, out through the fields and get this deer loaded up, and they don't have to drag it or carry it anymore. So they go back to the house, and as soon as they walk through the yard, out of the woods, the man that lived there, his wife came out, and she said, well, John had a phone call. He's to go to the hospital immediately because his father had a heart attack or was in an accident or something, and he's in real serious condition. And they said, as soon as you see him, you have him get right to the hospital. So the guy says, go, take off, go to the hospital and be with your dad. Don't worry about your deer. I'll get your deer. So the guy takes off with a 4-wheel drive. Well, here's his friend, and that deer's a mile away. Well, he doesn't have 4-wheel drive. He can't drive clear out there in that field because he's just got a 2-wheel drive car, and he'll get stuck. So he's thinking, well, I've got to, go out there myself and get that deer and drag it all the way back here to the house. Well, it was already dark, and so he went in the house and ate his dinner, and he said he rested up a bit, and it was really late, I don't know, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever. But there was quite a bit of a moon that night, and he said he didn't carry any weapon. He said, I didn't even have a flashlight. There was enough moon, and he said, I knew the field, and, and he said, I wouldn't have any problem finding the deer. And he'd pulled it around behind a great big brush pile and kind of covered it up with some brush, hoping that the coyotes wouldn't find it till he got back. So he goes out there by himself, no light, no weapon or anything, and he gets to the brush pile, and he can hear something on the other side. And he's thinking, oh, God, coyotes must have found it, and they're feeding on that deer. Mm-hmm. So he walks around the brush pile. Well, instead of coyotes, this great big 7.5, 8-foot thing was kneeling down, and it had one of the, I think, hind legs in its hand and was lifting this deer off the ground and looking up in the chest cavity, and he walked right up on it, and it turned and saw him, and it stood up with the deer, with its leg in one hand. And the guy made sketches of all this, and which is really good. And he said the thing's staring at him, and he's staring at it. And he said his heart was pounding out of his chest, and all the hairs standing up on his arms and his neck and everything. Wow. And the thing let out I can't remember. I'm not going to get the book out and go through there. It made some sort of a vocalization,
right?
And I can't recall what he said right now, but it like screamed this vocalization or bellowed it out or something. and he thought, I'm going to get killed, and he didn't know what to do, so he just did the same thing back to the Bigfoot. Yelled,
man.
And he said, even though it was night, but there was enough moon, he could see that it didn't know how to respond to that, and it dropped the deer, and it smacked that brush pile with its other hand and stomped off. And he could hear it going up through, even when it got out of sight, he could hear it go into the woods, and it just breaking stuff and just like throwing a tantrum. And he fell to his knees, and he, thank you, God, thank you, thank you, thank you. And, I'm expecting him to say, well, I got up and ran to the house. No, he loaded the deer, on his shoulder and packed the stupid deer clear back to the house. I said, you're got to be kidding me. He said, no. He says, if it wanted to kill me, it would have, and it left. So I figured I was safe. But the amazing thing is the guy still goes deer hunting out there. I said, you're not serious.
That sounds like a true deer hunter right there.
Yeah. He says, I still hunt out there. He says, I'm home before dark. Don't get me wrong. I won't be out after dark. But he says, I still go out there. I said, you are nuts. So, that, and I put that story on purpose, the very last story in the book, and I hope I didn't ruin it for anybody that hadn't read the book yet, because I wanted, when they read that story and they close the book up, they just shut their eyes and think, oh, I got to read another book from this guy. So, that's what I want. I love getting stories like that.
Yeah, that right there, though, I mean, if at the end of that story, at the end of the book, would make me think, though, that, if I went into the woods, and even if the one is mad, and I'm on the side of the fence that you have bad people, you have bad everything.
Right.
So there may be some that are bad and some that are good, and just some that are in between. And like you said, some that had an abscessed tooth, and some that got beat up, or by a bigger guy,
or on PMS,
or a female that's on PMS. But they've got the range. I think that they do have the same range of emotions that we may have, and
right.
But overall, how many times, even looking through history and through all the oral stories and everything, we've listened to a few of your lectures and stuff that you've given. There's really, Ape Canyon and things like that. You get where they maybe warn you, because I think that these things are big enough. If they wanted in Ape Canyon, they could have tore through that place and killed everyone in there. But they didn't. They beat the heck out of the outside of the building. They threw stuff at it. They did all this stuff. They did whatever they needed to do to get these guys to run away and not come back. And I believe that's
so that's close to Mount St. Helens, right? Ape Canyon.
Yeah.
So Doug, I do have a question though. What do you believe Bigfoot is? Because
oh yeah,
as well as anyone else does, there's all kinds of stories. Is it a flesh and blood creature? Is it a dimensional creature? What do you believe? Out of all the stories that you've collected and all of your research and everything, what do you believe?
Well, I still haven't decided. When I started this, when I started reading everything I could, I was, I told myself, I want to get as much information as I can. I want to read everything I can get a hold of, decide if these things are real or not. What are they? Where did they come from? What do we know about them? What don't we know? Everything. I kept getting books and reading, and then I'd read stories about UFOs and Bigfoot. And I thought, I don't want to hear about UFOs. I want to read about Bigfoot, one entity at a time. And sometimes I'd even get upset because, this book's half UFOs and it was supposed to be about Bigfoot. Well, is there a connection? Well, I don't know, but it seems awful strange that a lot of times when you read about a Bigfoot sighting, there's also reports of UFOs being seen in the same vicinity, around the same time, right over here at Salt Fork in Ohio. I've got newspaper clippings that's got stories, Bigfoot stories and UFO lights in the sky on the same page of the newspaper, where they happened the same night. And then you read about someone in the book by Stan Gordon, Silent Invasion, Stan's out of Pennsylvania. And I've met him several times and talked to him. And I said, well, what do you do when you get some of these stories that just can't be true? He says, well, if the witness strikes me as being believable and, they're not lying to you, they got nothing to gain by telling you a lie, I just tell it like it is, like they told me. And there's a story in there about a woman shooting at a Bigfoot with a shotgun, and when she shot the creature, it disappeared in a flash of light. And I know I've talked to Bart Nunnally out of Kentucky, and he's got stories in there about creatures disappearing, into a portal or appearing out of a portal. And he's got witnesses in there that claim that they knew where these portals were, and they could sit back a ways and watch with binoculars or a rifle scope, and they could actually see things coming and going in and out of this like invisible hole. And I thought, boy, I don't know. That's awful hard to believe something like that. It would explain how they're able to do some things, like the tracks out through the snow and then they just disappear, like the thing levitated and flew away. So I don't know. Some of them certainly seem to be flesh and blood, but other ones do things that just defy logic. They certainly don't all look alike. Some people say, well, what I saw looked like a big hairy ape. Other people say, no, what I saw looked like a caveman. It was definitely human. So are there different subspecies of these things? We don't all look alike. People don't look, different. The Caucasians don't look like pygmies, or Eskimos don't look like Aborigines. So I don't know. I can't answer what they are. It's like the more you learn, the more you don't know.
Yes, absolutely. That's the way I feel about it too. Because, you take places like Skinwalker Ranch and I mean,
right.
It's not even just there, but just all these different places. And, you have all different kinds of people that interpret things differently. You'll only find one footprint where you should have found a bunch of footprints. Did they erase all the others? And is that one footprint a sign? Or did they take a step and walk through a dimensional portal and are somewhere else?
Yeah, see, that's my stance.
Yeah.
The dimensional thing.
Right.
I think it's bleeding over into this dimension from another dimension.
Yeah, but until you have all the facts, keep an open mind and you'll find out.
I think there's a lot we just don't know yet.
Yes. Well,
but, you have to keep an open mind, and I hate to say it, but you've got hoaxers out there to contend with.
Yep.
That it really gripes me that they can't find something constructive to do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without interfering and doing stuff like that. But
so, are you familiar with what was his name? The Canadian guy that filmed a bunch of stuff on Bigfoot. Oh shoot!
You was talking about it.
I was just watching it now. I can't think of his name. But anyway, he had some encounters I was watching earlier, and it was on film. He was in night vision at night, and he seen a Bigfoot. The silhouette looked just like it. I mean, behind a rock and a tree, and he heard two more on each side. So he kept walking toward the one that he could see. And then all of a sudden, this huge tree trunk, I mean, it was at least 12, 14 inches in diameter and so long, came crashing down right next to him like it was thrown at him. What was his name?
Les Stroud.
Yes.
Les Stroud, yeah.
Les Stroud. Have you ever seen any of his stuff?
A little bit, not too much.
But that was amazing to me. I mean, I don't know if he was faking it or what, but something
Stroud,
did hit him.
Les
I mean,
Stroud.
came down and hit right next to him, and it was huge. A man couldn't have thrown it.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then when he got up from that and his camera was pointing back to where he was, the silhouette was gone. So it was weird. I'd like to have some encounter like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I believe that it's got to be real in one way because it leaves prints. And they could even see dermal ridges in some of these things.
Right.
So it's got to be real. But how has it left how has it been able to hide itself from humanity for so long? And I posted on the website just a couple of days ago about people are actually bioluminescent. Our eyes just can't read it. We can't see that we're bioluminescent. So we glow in the dark. And so, you know, when we're out at nighttime, can creatures or beings I will say beings Bigfoot, are they closer to nature, and can they actually maybe see these kind of things?
Good question.
Yeah. It's something that I don't know. I mean, it's science finds things out every day that we have to question ourselves on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, go
I
ahead.
do think that the government is withholding information, and if not flat out covering up incidents, just from talking to other researchers and some of the witness stories that I've gotten from people, ex-military people and things like that. I think that they know a lot more than what they're saying. And, I think it was the same way with the UFOs, but they are coming out, and admitting to UFO stories and putting videos out. And maybe at some point in time, they'll be as forthcoming with the Bigfoot stories.
Well, I know that you've kind of talked about it a little bit, and Jason and I did a show on it. It's quite a while back, probably almost a year ago, but on the Mount St. Helens incident when it erupted, and the government went in and supposedly helped a few of these creatures. And I know that you did you talked a little bit about that. So what's your stance on that? Do you believe that the government does maybe possibly even know about these things?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they've known about them. I'm sure they've collected bodies. I don't know that they actually have any living ones, and some people even seem to think that the government has created these creatures, due to some radioactive mutations or something. And I'm not going to go as far as to say that, but I just feel that they know a lot more about it than what they're letting on. And, like you would certainly think, as long as they've been reported, that there'd be one hit by a logging truck or semi or something and killed, And I've got a story in my fourth book about a man over here in Guernsey County, Ohio, that claims he saw a dead one along the interstate highway early in the morning. And due to heavy traffic, he couldn't stop. And he was on his way to work, and he was actually talking to his wife on the cell phone. And when he passed the spot it was laying on the side of the road, he got a good look at it, and he told his wife, and he said, when I get off work, I'm coming back out there and I'm going to get pictures of this thing. Well, when he came back, it was gone. And he said there was absolutely no trace of any evidence. He said it had been sanitized, was the word he used.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife had actually driven out there herself. See, when he saw it, it was like 8 or 9 hours before he was able to finish his shift and get back out there to where it was. But his wife had spoken to him on the phone as he drove past and saw it, and he was telling her where it took place, the mile marker. And she went out just a few hours, maybe 4 hours after that, and she couldn't find it. And she thought, well, I must have heard him wrong on the mile marker because I didn't see anything. But he says, no, he says, I swear on a stack of Bibles there was something laying there. And even if I'm wrong and it wasn't a Bigfoot, say it was a black bear, but I don't think it was a black bear because he said, I saw the feet and the hands and, the size of it. But even if I was wrong and it was a black bear, why is it not there now? Why is there no blood or no hair? It's been sanitized. They wouldn't do that for a black bear.
No, you can't get any county workers to work that fast.
No, that ain't
So who came by and saw it other than him and made the phone call, and what government agency went out there and cleaned it up and took it away so nobody else would see it? That's a question we've got. Who gave the orders to do that? And, I've heard stories like that before. I've read stories in books, but this was the first time I ever actually had the witness that saw the thing. And I did an interview with him in person, and he was adamant about what he'd seen, and he didn't care to remain anonymous. He used his name and everything.
Wow.
So I do think they know a lot more than what the public knows, and they're keeping it quiet.
Well, we've had you on here pretty long. You have so many interesting stories, and we appreciate you. And if you would, could you tell people where they can find you? I mean, I know you got some Bigfoot conferences coming up.
Right,
stuff.
exactly. You've got something actually in the morning you're doing, right?
Yeah, we've got there's a conference in Coshocton, Ohio tomorrow. And I'm not speaking at it, but I do have a vendor's table. I've got to get my stuff ready to go to that. And then have another one in Carroll County the following week. So it's so nice to be out again, after the COVID shut everything down for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
I miss going out and getting stories from people and telling stories and meeting people.
Have you been to any libraries lately, or are you still doing
Well, unfortunately, they haven't opened back up yet. I hope, that I guess the Ohio Governor DeWine said, I think it's June 2nd, they're supposed to open the state back up. And, well, I've had both my shots, so I don't have to wear the mask. But I really miss those library talks, because that's where I got so many of my stories from.
Right.
There's a lot of these old stories out there that are still tucked away inside the memory banks of the witness, and I need to get them out into the open so we can all enjoy them.
Right. So, again, I want to let everybody know that you could go onto our website, project.corona.org, or onto our Facebook page, which is Paranormal, Everything Paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs, Aliens, and Ghosts. Either one of those two sites, you could go to our events page, and you could look up Doug Waller. And so even though it's going to be after tonight, it'll be in the past, it'll still be showing up, and all of the books will be there. And all of his contact information and everything.
Have a story for him,
right? So you could get in touch with him, and but if you want to give that out one more time on the air, also for those, sure. We all know those people who decide that they don't want to, conform and go to places that they'd rather just write it down on paper. They'd just rather hear it from you.
If they want to buy a book, or if they have a story they'd like to share, I'm interested in hearing the stories too. Give me your contact information. And as I said, you don't have to, your name can be withheld, in the book. I don't necessarily need your name, but the story is what I'm interested in. But my email is dwaller465@gmail.com, or they can go through your Facebook page to reach me, or they can just search under Doug Waller or Southeastern Ohio Society for Bigfoot Investigation.
Awesome. That's great right there. I know that you've got things to do in the morning, and we definitely appreciate that. You've taken this time to come and talk with us. And
well, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, you're the man.
Yes,
and,
yes, we really appreciate it.
We would definitely like to do this talk again sometime, and I'm sure we'll let Lee set that up sometime if you're willing. And
we can do it again.
We sure do appreciate you.
Yeah,
so what conference are you going to be at tomorrow?
Well, this is a first-time conference. It's called the Sasquatch Triangle Conference, and I know Don Keating is one of the speakers, and Kane Michael, and there's at least two more, maybe three, and I can't remember who they are right now. But we're looking for, I think, 100 to 125 people.
Okay.
And so this is in Coshocton, which is one county. I'm in Muskingum, but Guernsey and Coshocton and Muskingum counties all, touch borders. And it's a really big Sasquatch sighting area. And hopefully I'll get some new stories up there tomorrow, and maybe sell a book or two.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So you should come down to the East Tennessee.
That's the one in Gatlinburg.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
you
in July.
Yeah,
it might be a 6-hour drive for you, give or take.
I've got a friend that's been there a couple times, and I think, don't you get hundreds of people?
Thousands.
Wow.
Even last year during COVID, we had almost 2,000 people there.
Yes.
Wow, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that.
You know what? I know peoples. I really do. And Matt Sieber is a really good friend of the show. He's been with the show since the inception,
very start of the show.
And he's with East Tennessee Bigfoot, or he is East Tennessee Bigfoot,
and he gets back with BFRO and everything.
He is part of BFRO too, but he knows very personally the people that put on that show.
Well, he does the
MC.
He was an MC.
He's not doing it
Not
this year though.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he does know very personally the people that do the show, and I can ask him to ask them to maybe ask you to come down, because the main reason I'm saying is because they've got some people this year that I'm not very happy with. Now, one person that I'm happy with that they've got this year is Dave Pilates that's coming in for the show. Some of the other people.
Well, different people have different likes.
I will keep it there. I will keep it there. If anybody, but I'll tell you, we do have a table there, and we will have fun getting to talk to anybody and everybody that comes. And but yeah, I mean, if you are interested in coming down, then I will talk to him about maybe seeing if they can maybe ask you to come down.
Well, they have an
especially since you do it.
encounters.
Yeah.
They do an
And I think-
encounters
is
thing
it
every
like
year.
You get to talk for at least 15 minutes.
It's
or
like
something?
15-minute
Wow.
thing for encounters and stuff, but they've got an MC over it too. Last year, our buddy did that and stuff. So, but yeah, that would be. I would like
Great.
to listen to you.
You could
talk.
bring your
Yeah.
books and even sell your books.
Yeah, they set up tables. For you
We've got
guys
a
and stuff.
table.
Yeah.
We can put them on there.
So, but
that would work.
but yeah, so we would definitely. I would like to meet you. I know Jeff would or Jason would, and Lee. I'm sure Lee would. But we're all going to be there this year. So, to be able to see you in the future would be fantastic.
Well, maybe we could work something out.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we can. I'm
But
sure
I have,
we can.
but I have to, I have to give credit to the witnesses. I'm just passing on the information.
Yeah, we
I've had-
love that about you because you do give credit where
Right.
credit's due.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Whether
Well-
they stay anonymous or not.
Yeah,
That's
a lot of people get into this, and they try to make it about themselves.
yes.
And
That's what we're trying
Yeah.
to do. We're just trying to get the information to people, and they can
Right.
decide what they want to believe.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just simple stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, guys, I need to get off of
Yes,
here and
sir.
get some stuff packed up,
Yep.
and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
And,
Thank you, Doug, for allowing us to have this interview with you and everything, and we really appreciate you.
And we
Well, you're certainly welcome, and thanks for all your listeners that tuned in and provided me with some head-scratching questions that I had to come up with an answer real quick.
That's
Yeah.
the best.
When you come back, this is Jason. So when you come back, I'd still like to talk about some dimensional stuff.
Okay.
with you.
but the man's busy. He has to
I
get up
know he
early
is.
in the morning.
But
I know.
either way it goes.
But next time,
Next time,
hope you come
Yep.
back.
And thank you, Doug, and you have a good night. Okay.
Okay, good night, fellas.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. So, everybody, we just got to talk to Doug Waller, and that was a fascinating interview. It was kind of we got to cut it off a little short
Yeah.
to what our normal interviews, but hey, you know what? He stayed about another 30 minutes longer than what he
Yeah.
was originally going to
Hope-
stay.
I hope he
So-
doesn't message me saying, "Dang it, you kept me on too long." But he was so
He's the one who cut it down, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's not even an issue. Like I said, I told him at the beginning of this that he had the control to it, so that's not even an issue. So we're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
And when we come back, we're going to talk about dimensional Bigfoot.
Well, we're just going to do a little bit of talking.
Dimensional talk.
We're going to talk a little bit about the new website.
yeah.
And we might, everybody stay, because we might give away 3 months of premium membership at projectdarkcorona.org.
Well, you better go ahead and go to projectdarkcorona.org and become a member.
That's
if you're
right.
wanting to get the free, because we have to
And
have,
remember, interdimensional Bigfoot is coming up next. So we're going to talk about that too.
Okay, we can do it all.
We got 3 hours to do whatever we need.
Okay, anyway.
We hope you want pizza
I want pizza.
because Michelle's ordering pizza for the Project Dark Corona crew.
So, I wish everybody hadn't left that had left, because I had thrown up there that we might give away 3 months free of our premium membership.
Yep. And if you're listening to us on Spreaker or Podbean, rush over to projectdarkcorona.org and become a member, and you might be able to win before the show's over.
That's right. If you become a member, jump in the chat room. It's Area 51 chat room.
Yeah, but you can't have baby dog.
Oh, that's my puppy dog. So, so Jason, you just wanted to talk about some interdimensional.
Yes.
So you think it's interdimensional?
I do. I think something is different about a Bigfoot, either interdimensional or outer stellar. Not interstellar.
Podcast coming to you live from an underground bunker at an undisclosed location deep within the Appalachian Mountains, bringing you the strange and unknown with your hosts David and Jason. You're listening to Project Dark Corona Podcast.